Hello everyone! Now, just so you all know, I will be doing a plethora of videos here today to make up for lost time. Without further ado, and once again, Chapter 6, Job Hunt and Settling In, Part 2, and to the end of the chapter. When I finally found the farm, my mind was blown. There were thousands of apple trees far and wide, and each tree had hundreds of apples waiting to be picked. This was truly amazing. Applejack and her workers must have put a lot of time and work into this. I need to stay on topic here. I shook myself out of my shocked state and walked down the path to the farm. I continued looking at each tree with its apples in place. The trees were really healthy, and each of the apples were red, fresh, and looked really tasty. A set of barks went off. One, then two. I stopped in my tracks when I heard the sound of a dog barking. I turned around and saw a dog, not knowing what species it is. The dog had brown fur, a white underbelly, and wore a red collar. The dog curiously walked up to me and started sniffing my ankles while circling me. I looked at it carefully and knew this dog was a female. I smiled and kneeled down to the dog's level while she backed up a little. "Hey girl, my name is Daniel," I greeted. She looked at me for a bit, cocking her head with curiosity. She slowly walked up to me, while I slowly held my hand out. She started sniffing it for a second, until she barked happily and lunged at me, licking my face in the process. "Down, girl! Stop, that tickles!" I giggled while petting her, while trying to keep her calm. A whistle was heard in the distance. "Winona! Where are you, girl?" called out a familiar voice. The dog barked happily, signaling the mare to where she was. I turned my head and saw Applejack carrying a bucket full of apples. "There you are! Oh, howdy, Daniel!" she greeted. I chuckled and stroked the dog's fur. "Hey, Applejack, how you doing?" She chuckled as well. "Doing fine. I see you got acquainted with Winona." I smiled and scratched under her chin, making her kick her leg a little. Me and Applejack chuckled by this. I guess you could say that. I stopped scratching her and stood up. "So what brings you to the farm?" she asked. "I'm looking for a job. Twilight said you might be hiring for the moment," I explained. "I think we can get you a job here, but it takes a lot of work, if you're up for it," Applejack said. "Well, I'll need some details as to what you and the others do on the farm," I replied. Applejack arched me a brow. "Others?" "Yeah, you know, the other ponies that work here," I explained. "Actually, partner, me and my family work on our own, though we do get some help from Twi and the others from time to time," he explained. "What? Is she serious? She and her family literally took care of this farm on their own?" My eyes widened as dinner plates, and my jaw dropped. "You're serious, right? Are you serious?" I asked in disbelief. Yeah, me, my older brother, younger sister, and my granny work on the farm. We also live here," she explained. I laughed. "Oh my God, you ponies are ones full of surprises. I can't believe you and your family run the orchard alone and did all this," I said, holding my hand out to all the trees and apples around. "Not even my own people can do all this on their own, let alone being their families running on orchard on their own. I have to say, I'm really impressed." Applejack smiled, while her cheeks turned slightly pink. "Thank you kindly, Daniel. Now then, how about we get back to the farm?" she asked. I nodded. "Sounds good." Applejack, Winona, and I walked back to the farm. "So, anyways, what is it you all do around here?" I asked to make the time pass. "My family and I pick apples, take care of the pigs, sheep, bale hay, and keep the farm clean. Nothing big, but we always work at the crack of dawn," she explained. I shrugged. "I can handle that. I've worked at other jobs and had to get up early before the sun rises, so this will be a no-brainer," I replied. Applejack smiled at that. "That's the spirit, Sugar Cube." I blushed a little by her calling me Sugar Cube. No one ever called me that before. We made it back to the farm, and Applejack placed a bucket of apples down. I looked at the house next to the farm and saw an old mare pony rocking in a blue rocking chair, catching some Z's. She had a frizzy white mane and a tail, wore a brown dress with a white apron, had wrinkled green fur, and had an apple pie cutie mark on her arm. "Hey, Applejack, who's that over there?" I asked, pointing to the mare in the rocking chair. "Oh, that's Granny Smith. She my granny," she said. "You want to meet her?" I smiled. "I don't see why not." Applejack and I walked over to Granny Smith, and Applejack started shaking her shoulder softly. "Up and at 'em, Granny Smith. We have a guest." "Huh? Oh, what?" She opened her eyes, which were an amber-like color. "Oh, hello, Applejack." She then looked at me. "Oh, and who might this young whippersnapper?" "Granny Smith, this is Daniel Blaze. Daniel, this is Granny Smith," Applejack said. I smiled and held my hand out to her. "A pleasure to meet you, Miss Smith," I greeted politely. "There's one thing I learned on Earth. It's to always respect your elders." My, aren't you the gentle colt? It's nice to meet you as well, sonny. You can just call me Granny Smith," she said, smiling while shaking my hand. "Granny, Daniel here needs a job, and I think he might be the pony person to do the job," Applejack said. "Might?" I asked. Applejack chuckled at that. "I'm only kidding, Sugar Cube." Granny Smith let out a chuckle of her own. "Well, he seems very fit. I think he's fit for the job." "So, Daniel, you think you can help us pick some apples for a bit?" Applejack asked. I smiled confidently and nodded. "You bet." I placed my sword and bag down and stretched. "So where do I begin?" Applejack grabbed an empty bucket and gave it to me. "Take the bucket and place all the apples from that tree and place them in there. When you're done, bring the bucket back here and place it where I put the others," she explained, pointing to a tree not far from us. I nodded and walked over to the tree. I placed the bucket down, took off my jacket, and got to work. I grabbed a branch and hauled myself up and picked an apple. I tossed the apple down to the bucket and continued the process. I jumped from branch to branch while picking each apple and tossing each into the bucket. "Thank you for the training, Grandfather," I muttered to myself while I continued picking the apples. After another 5 minutes, all the apples from the trees had been picked. I jumped down from the tree and carried the bucket to the farm. "That young whippersnapper is something, dear," I heard Granny Smith say. "He sure is, Granny," Applejack said. I placed the bucket down and decided to listen into the conversation. "I think he's the perfect son pony for you, dear," Granny said. I blushed by what she said and then heard Applejack. "What? What makes you say that?" "I can tell you like him, dear, and I'm sure he likes you as well," Granny explained. "Granny, we're just friends. Besides, I only met him for, 4 days?" This was now getting embarrassing for me. I walked up to the two mares and cleared my throat, getting the two's attention. "I'm done, Applejack." She looked at me wide-eyed and surprised. "Already?" I nodded. "Take a look for yourself." Applejack walked me over to the buckets and saw my bucket full of apples. "Well, I'll be. How did you do it so fast?" I shrugged. "I just jumped from branch to branch, picked all the apples, and put them in the bucket. Simple as that," I explained. Applejack looked at me surprisingly, but then smiled. "You're really something, Sugar Cube. I think you'll help us out a lot. You're hired." I smiled and held my hand out. "Thanks, Applejack." She smiled and shook my hand. "Be here at the crack of dawn tomorrow, and I'll get you started," Applejack said. I smiled and nodded while grabbing my bag and sword. "Will do. Thanks again, Applejack. I'll see you later." I waved goodbye and left the farm. "Sugar Cube, catch!" I turned and saw a red apple flying over to me. I quickly caught it in my hands. "A little thank you for helping us out today. I'll see you tomorrow," Applejack called out. I waved goodbye and left with an apple in my hand. Took a bite out of the apple, and I'll say this. Best damn apple ever! How could everything I eat taste 1,000 times better? Even by 1,000% standard, than the brand kind of food I eat on Earth. Might as well not ask. Okay, I already found a job. Next is heading to Rarity's boutique. Eh, pardon me, everyone. I'm not really fully awake yet. This is kind of early in the morning for me. Rarity's boutique for new clothing. I walked down the path and surprisingly saw Rarity walking next to Fluttershy. I finished up my apple and threw it away in the nearest trash bin, then walked up to the two. Rarity! I called out, getting her attention. Good afternoon, Daniel, darling. How are you doing? She asked. I smiled. Doing well. I was actually looking for you. Really? She asked, surprised a little. I nodded. Yeah, you see, I need some pairs of clothing, since this is the only pair that I got for the time being, I explained. Oh, well, it's not a problem at all, darling. I'll be more than happy to take your measurements, but that'll have to wait till later on, because me and Fluttershy are on our way to the spa for our usual hangout, Rhodey explained. There's a spa here? I asked curiously. Of course, dear! Wait, you've never been to a spa before? She asked, shocked. I shook my head and answered, Never. Well, would you like to join me and Fluttershy? Rarity offered. I smiled. Well, I guess it's fine, but I'm only comfortable if Fluttershy and you are, I replied. Perfectly fine with me, darling. What about you, Fluttershy? Rarity asked the shy Pegasus. Oh, I'm okay with it, she answered softly. Rarity clapped her hands together. Excellent! Let's go! The three of us walked into a spa shop, which was actually nice looking. It was my first time being in a spa, so I didn't know what to expect. Rarity walked over to the front counter and rang a little golden bell. Then a mare with blue fur, pink mane and tail, with blue eyes, and was wearing a white uniform, and even had a lotus cutie mark came out of the corner and smiled. Welcome back, Rarity. Will you be doing the usual with you and Fluttershy? Indeed, Lotus, but I have somebody new to the spa and will be joining us, Rarity explained. Lotus arched her brow. Who else is? She went off when she eyed me, and I saw a small blush form on her cheeks. Oh my. Deciding not to be rude, I smiled and walked up to her, extending my hand to her. My name is Daniel Blaze, Lotus. It's a pleasure to meet you. Her blush increased, but she shook my hand. It's nice to meet you as well. I'm Lotus. I run the spa with my twin sister, Aloy, she greeted. You have a twin? That's very surprising. I'll be happy to meet her soon, I said, smiling. What about me? Another female voice asked. I turned my head and was dumbfounded. The mare was a lot like Lotus, but the coloring was switched around. Her fur was pink and her mane and tail color were blue. Whoa, when you say you have a twin, I never expected this. You two look so similar to each other. Then the fact the color is swapped, I said, a little shocked, but then turned to Lotus and smiled. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Daniel Blaze, I greeted. Aloy smiled at me. A pleasure, Daniel. Wait. Are you the human we've been hearing about? She asked in shock while looking at me. I smiled and nodded. In the flesh. I'm surprised that my name is being spread fast. Then it is an honor to meet you, Daniel. We hope we can give you the best massage you've ever had, Lotus said with a hint of excitement in her voice. I simply chuckled. I know it will, considering you beautiful ladies are fit for the job, and this being my first massage. The twins took my compliment well because they were blushing like crazy. They then smiled. Thank you, Daniel. Now, come this way and we'll get you three started, Aloy said. Rarity, Fluttershy, and I followed the two spa twins to the back room. My eyes looked in amazement around me. So far, there were hundreds of massage tables, 3 hot tubs, and a few doors here and there. The changing rooms are over there. We'll wait for you three to come out, Lotus said. I smiled, and with a nod, I gave my thanks. After I thanked the twins, I entered the changing room. I took off my original clothing, along with my underwear, and put on a pair of black swim trunks that were surprisingly in my bag. I looked to my left and saw a row of different robes. Guess these must be used here. Might as well. I took the red robe and tied it on, and left the changing room. Already, Rarity and Fluttershy were out there wearing their own robes. Rarity's was as white as her fur and had the diamond cutie mark, while Fluttershy's robe was yellow and had 3 pink butterflies on them. Are you three ready for your relaxation? Aloy asked. We nodded. I took my robe off first and set it to the side. My body was pretty well developed due to the training with my grandfather. Even after his death, it never stopped me from training. I had a six-pack along with my arms and chest well developed, with decent muscle. I turned back to the four girls, who were eyeing me while blushing furiously. I even saw Flutters's wing twitch a little while raising partly. Are you four okay? I asked. They snapped out of their shocked state. Yes, darling, Reddy answered. You just look really well developed, not to mention very handsome. I blushed a little at that. Thanks. Ahem. The water is ready, Oda said. Reddy and Fluttershy took their own robes off. My eyes immediately glued to their amazing bodies. The two were amazingly gorgeous while a blush formed on my cheeks. Well developed, bodies, smooth stomachs, decent size. Stop it, Daniel. Don't think dirty thoughts. I stopped looking at them and the four of us stepped into the tub. I slowly descended into the hot water and let out a relaxing sigh. This water felt amazing. Every ounce of stress and cramps in my body magically washed away. Enjoying yourself, Daniel, darling? Rarity asked me. Very, I replied softly but happily. Both Rarity and Fluttershy giggled by me, little dazed. I've never seen you so relaxed before, darling, Rarity said. I've been training with my grandfather for 15 years. I never had a lot of time to relax, I explained. Not once? Rarity asked, surprised. We do relax, but for special occasions and different things. My grandfather and I usually camped together when I was young. He would take me out to get something to eat or see a movie whenever I succeed in my training. Not only that, me, my mother, and him would walk along the beach, admiring its beauty along while watching the stars, I explained. You miss him, don't you? Fluttershy asked. I frowned a little, but nodded. Yeah, a lot. I then smiled. But as long as I remember him, remember the training he gave me, along with me holding on to his sword, I know he'll always be in my heart, I said. Fluttershy and Rarity smiled warmly at me. Those were some divine words, darling, Rarity said. I smiled again. Thanks. I'm also glad I brought it with me. Otherwise, it would have been stolen and sold. Why's that? Rarity asked me. My sword is not just some sword you could just buy anywhere. No, this sword is special. The sword is made out of a crystal compound of some kind of black rock, I explained. Do you know what the material is? Fluttershy asked me. Honestly, no. Not even my grandfather knows what it's made out of. But it's one heck of a strong sword. I saw him test it out on many steel swords, and they broke easily, and not a single scratch was left on the blade, I explained. Incredible! Rarity said in awe. I nodded. I know what you mean. From that conclusion, I knew the sword was the strongest I've ever known. Not only that, it's very expensive. Really? Yeah. The currency I use back on Earth are called dollar bills, which are small pieces of paper, painted and printed with special green paint. It goes up from $1 bill to a $500 bill. My grandfather once told me someone foolishly wanted to buy the sword for $3 million due to what the sword was made out of, I told. That much? That's insane! Why didn't your grandfather sell it if it's that much? Bertie asked in shock. The reason it's special is because the sword was passed down in my family. He even gave it to me on my 19th birthday, a year before he passed, explained. Rarity and Fluttershy frowned. Oh, well, he made the right decision of giving it to you, Rarity said, smiling again. I smiled right back. He did. I never leave it out of my sight. I sighed and leaned back on the rim of the tub, allowing the hot water to soak my body. For the next 10 minutes or so, Fluttershy and Rarity did the conversation with each other, but Rarity did most of the talking. With the sound of a bell, saying it was time for us to get out, I stepped out and washed my body off with a towel. My body felt rejuvenated, and I felt 3 years younger again. Lotus walked up to me and smiled. Are you ready for the massage? She asked, smiling. I nodded, and she guided me to a massage table, I lied on my stomach, resting my head on my arms. I felt Lotus's hands gently apply pressure on my back. She started to slowly move her hands up and down my back. Oh my God. Her hands felt so amazing. Every bone in my body turned into jelly by her amazing magic and her touch. My eyes rolled back a little, and I didn't know I was drooling a little. You okay, dear? I heard Lotus ask me. Yeah, I just never felt so relaxed before. I cooed, feeling my body go limp. I felt her body lean against me, and she whispered into my ear. You seem so stressed. Don't worry, I'll take good care of you. I blushed by that, but I didn't care for the moment. All that was happening right now was me enjoying this amazing massage by Lotus. I then felt my eyes growing heavy. You know, Daniel? Daniel! Huh? What? Huh? Huh? I forcefully opened my eyes after I somehow went out cold, until I remembered who I was enjoying Lotus's massage. I looked up and saw Rarity over me, giggling. Enjoyed your little nap? She asked in a teasing voice. I chuckled softly and rose from the table. Yeah, I've never felt this amazing before. Every bone and muscle in my body was no longer cramped. Even my lower back was fixed. Lotus and Aloy walked up to me and smiled. I hope you enjoyed your time here, Lotus said. I smiled. I did. I've never felt this rejuvenated in a long time. Well, darling, me and Fluttershy will be waiting for you outside, Rarity said. I nodded and walked into the changing room and got my old clothing on. I dumped the towel into the hamper, placed my trunks back into my bag, grabbed my bag and sword, and left the changing room. I went to the entrance of the spa and smiled to the twins. Thank you for the massage. It was truly relaxing. Also, how much do I owe you for the service? Oh, don't worry about it, dear. It's on us, free of charge, Lotus said. Wow. These ponies keep surprising me with their kindness and generosity. You sure? Positive, Aloy responded, smiling. I smiled back. Thank you. I'll be looking forward to coming back here again soon. Aloy smiled and walked to me with a piece of paper. These are our numbers. Give us a call any time. I smiled and thanked her and took the paper from her. Lotus smiled and walked up to me. She held her hand out and I shook it. Then she leaned into me and whispered into my ear. When you come back, your next massage will be on the house, and we'll throw in a special VIP treatment for you. I didn't know what this VIP treatment was, but the sound of it sent a shiver down my spine. I forced a smile and waved goodbye to the twins. Okay, whatever this VIP thing is, it's making me feel weird. Not in a bad way. Strangely a good way. I walked out and rejoined Rarity. Hey Rarity, where's Fluttershy? I asked her. Fluttershy went back home to take care of her animals. We'll head over to my house and I'll take your measurements, Rarity said. Sounds good. The two of us walked down the streets for a bit until Rarity asked me something. So, darling, you mentioned you're single, right? She asked in a nervous voice. The question just caught me by surprise. Well, of course, I never dated a girl back on Earth. There's this one time a girl tried to hit on me, but Tom and his friends ruined it. I answered. Why'd you ask? I saw Rarity tense up and her white cheeks turn bright crimson. Well, I was wondering if... Look out! I turned sharply and saw 3 fillies coming at us at high speeds. I didn't have enough time to react, and the 3 collided with my body, making me slam into the ground. I was a little dazed by the sudden impact. Thankfully, I wasn't hurt. I checked to make sure the 3 girls were okay. One of them was bright yellow and red-colored mane and a tail, with a large pink bow tie on her head. She wore a red t-shirt with a pink skirt and had amber eyes. The next one was orange, had a messy mane and tail that was purple, and a pair of small wings. She wore a black leather jacket with skinny black jeans and purple eyes. The last filly was white like Rarity. Along with a white horn and blue eyes, she wore a white skirt along with a short-sleeved baby blue shirt. With that comes the end of part 2.